Welcome everybody to the Embedded World 2017 in Nuremberg. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Dave Hughes. He is CEO at HCC Embedded. Welcome.
Thank you, Carolina.
Dave, let me start asking you, what are you presenting at the show?
Hi, what we're presenting at the show is our focus on high quality software solutions for IoT, in particular providing high quality communications and high quality storage for devices that you might want to use on the Internet of Things, so-called Internet of Things. Historically, HTC has been developing software components for the last 15 years, focused on the deeply embedded market. Our very first products were always focused on quality and reliability, fail-safe file systems. We're certainly one of the very first companies to produce very high reliability storage for deeply embedded systems on different types of flash. And we've continued to expand that product range with more components and always trying to build more and more quality into our products, taking things forward. The range of products is really quite extensive nowadays. We have something like 200 or more different software modules that are all very modularly constructed to interact with each other, and also that gives us the flexibility and scalability to do individually make things very high quality and very focused. So the big thing that's changed in recent years is the IoT. It's sort of kind of the new kid on the block in terms of embedded terminology. There's nothing, to us oldies in the industry, there's nothing really particularly new about the Internet of Things. What we're talking about here is connecting devices to the Internet, and back in the 1990s we came up with the idea of IPv6 to be able to connect every toaster to the Internet. What has changed in recent years is, firstly, bandwidths have become cheap, and second thing is that microcontrollers have become very cheap for what they can do, and this has now enabled large numbers of devices to be better connected. The other aspect of this is that the driving forces for IoT development are a little bit different. They're not just pure technical, they seem to be more based in concept. The idea of big data, the idea that if we collect enough data from enough devices, we can find useful ways of processing that and make systems more efficient, more useful.
Right. And what do you think, what are the major challenges in this area?
The major challenges are many, and it depends what you're trying to do with IoT. So in my view, 90% of IoT devices won't care very much about quality. If we are just producing systems that monitor who's sitting on a seat somewhere and telling some taxi driver everybody's stood up in a theatre or something, you're probably not going to want the highest quality of software, highest reliability of data. You're not going to invest heavily in this. But there is a whole area that we are really fascinated in of use cases for the IoT, where the information will be very, very important, and very important that it's accurate. And so we are producing the small data for the big data. And it's important that the big data will become meaningless if it's got systematic errors in it, for example, or it becomes very hazardous if it actually contains critical information. So one particular example is sort of wearable medical devices, where you'd be monitoring someone's heart condition. The idea that that data would not represent the patient's real state of health is obviously something that's fundamentally dangerous, and you'd want to make sure that A, it's stored correctly and accurately. You'd want to make sure the system is running on is stable, and you want to make sure that data is communicated correctly. So all these things have to be addressed. It's not everybody's cup of tea in the IoT market. A lot of the IoT is not focused on that, but there are a growing number of devices. And so we have here a picture of cows, for example. People are really networking cows. This sounds bizarre, but people actually want to know how much milk their cows are producing, what the health of them is, how happy they are, because all these things allow us to make better judgments on which field they should go to, how to manage it, and we can get better productivity and more predictable productivity. And so the use cases for these things are just So to give you a bit of background, I mean, the general structure of how this is working is there's this sort of small data, big data system. The big data is stored in the cloud, and there's the theory that if we stick enough big data in the cloud, somebody will run some algorithm on it and make something useful out of it. And now getting that big data into the cloud has become cheap enough that it's viable for people to do this much more speculatively than they used to be doing it. And so the general thing we have here is you have a lot of remotely connected vending machines, for example. In fact, on our stand here, we have a machine that spits chocolate at you. You put in a QR code into a website, and you get the number correct, and it will throw a piece of chocolate at you. And so this is just another example of how you can use the cloud as a communications device. You put a fairly specific piece of data, something else is monitoring that piece of data, and it handles it. And of course, you can develop the application afterwards if the data is available. You don't have to pre-decide what the focus of your data is going to be. So one of the things we've been doing at the show here is we've been announcing our MQTT launch. I mean, we've been focusing for quality for many a long year, developing higher quality software systems. The MQTT module has been developed with total quality in mind. That means it's a very detailed design specification for it, which goes from very high level down into the very depths of each function, describes the whole functionality completely, and then that's been turned into code in a way that you expect of a very serious development. And we see that on a very high quality path. And to back that up, we've also got artifacts like a complete MISRA compliance report, so that it's been developed to very high coding standards, very high standards of static analysis, to provide a very high quality solution for people who really want to get a very reliable system they can trust for their MQT data.
But talking about markets, which markets are you targeting with this solution?
I mean, historically, HCC has never focused on a particular market because the components we produce are global. You know, the idea of file storage, the idea of communications, it applies to every industry. And this is one thing I'll come on into in a minute, is that the standards for producing software have become verticalized. In other words, the atomic industry has one set of standards. Automotive has its 26262 and AUTOSAR. Industrial safety has their 61508. Aviation has their DO 178B. And there's all these different verticalized standards, but fundamentally, those quality standards apply the same methods for developing software. Software is software. You have some inputs, you have some outputs, you want to make sure it behaves to the specification. So when you've got pure software, you can only apply more and more process. The same basic processes are specified by all these organizations. And so we have never focused on a particular market as such. What we're doing is focusing on producing the high quality product that can then be integrated with the different quality standards for these products. And one of the things we're also stressing in that respect is that the other aspect of the IoT is clearly you're now connecting a large number of devices that traditionally people wouldn't have outside access to, which means you immediately have a security issue. And people who are networking their cows really cannot be expected to be security experts. They cannot know that somebody wants to hack their cow. Now, whether the farmer is really worried about his cow being hacked is a interesting point. But these types of issues are things that you have to consider, and you never know what the unexpected consequences are. Maybe there's a farmer, a competitive farmer, who could find that information useful. You just do not know what the consequences will be. So you've got people who are really exposed to one industry, which is monitoring how well their cow is performing, suddenly having to deal with security. And the only ways to ensure security, the algorithms are well known, well documented, but they have to be implemented in a process-driven way, a way that's recognized by industry standards. So, historically, we've seen over and over again disastrous software things, the Heartbeat incident, the Toyota incident. All of these major failings have really been down to badly implemented software. The algorithms are well known and well managed, and as such, there are very few direct hacks that cause significant damage. The main hacks have been because of people losing their passwords in the sort of Sony type case, or by people writing poorly designed software. Generally speaking, the breaks they found in protocols have been very specific and not really broadly usable ways of accessing things. The main problem is badly implemented software. So as we were talking about earlier, to deal with this, the verticalization of the standards is a problem. If I was to be able to take a step back in the world and say, hey, this is all software. Software should have been designed a long time ago how to make good quality software. Unfortunately, vertical markets actually decided this, and as a consequence, we have this diverse set of standards. So, along with this whole focus on quality, what this slide is demonstrating is how we have gone forward, and with various components, we have taken different processes to different levels, and we're gradually building up more and more quality and more process associated with different components we produce. And these include things like this is our advanced embedded framework for developing software, static analysis reports, coverage reports, design requirements, and all these things are at different states depending on different products. And you can see things like MQTT have been developed really to quite a rigorous level. And this is our whole focus on what we're trying to demonstrate to show. If people want high quality, reliable IoT products, they're going to have to invest in the type of products that we are trying to produce here.
Well, thank you, Dave, for this interview and for the insights in your company portfolio.
You're welcome.